Welcome everybody to what is kind of a knockoff episode of Decaf. I'm Justin Owen, and here in place of Mark and Taylor. Mark's on vacation, and who knows what Taylor's up to right now. So I get to take over the show and welcome my good friend John Tillman, the CEO of the Illinois Policy Institute, among many things. A huge warrior for freedom all across the country, including his home state of Illinois. John, we're going to talk today about unions. And so I'll set things up with most people here in Tennessee have heard recently that the Volkswagen plant in Chattanooga has unionized under the United Auto Workers pretty significantly. About 75% of workers voted to join the union. As we speak, workers at the Mercedes plant just down south in Alabama are also voting about whether to unionize. Is this just a couple of plants that are making some, local decisions, or does this matter? Is this something that bigger that we should be watching out for?
It matters greatly, as my dog also agrees. And I don't know if you heard that bark in the
Perfect
background. And
timing.
one point of quick clarification: I gave up the CEO title at IPI 3 years ago, so I'm chairman now. And Matt Paprocki runs that institution now and does a fantastic job. This is
Also a great
definitely
guy.
Yes, and this is definitely a trend line, and it matters greatly because for years now, the peak UAW membership in 1970 was 1.5 million members when our population was about 180, 190 million. Today, they're down to 373,000, so tremendous reduction in UAW membership. And now we see that trend line moving in the other direction of this vote in Chattanooga. So the question is why? And I think there's multiple things going on here. One is that the VW company out of Germany told management, as I understand it, to not fight it too vigorously because, of course, Germany is a highly unionized place. They're comfortable with unions. And so they might not have had as vigorous an educational competition as others may have. I think that's part of it. But I think more importantly, there's two other factors at play. One is for a long time, U.S. law has made it difficult for those who want to campaign against the unionization vote to do so. And it's much easier for people who are the pro-union vote to do the propaganda war that goes on in these matters. And that's been that way for a long time. I think more importantly, what's going on is more secular to the economy as a whole. There is very much, people find the word populism. I always like to ask people, when you say populism, do you mean good populism or bad populism? Because there's two kinds, right? We the people is good populism. But I think what's going on here is that the car companies represent the establishment. They represent elites in these votes. And I think workers feel that the governors of our various institutions, whether it's an automobile company like VW, Mercedes down in Alabama, or your state government or your federal government, people feel disaffected and disconnected in that they're not getting a fair deal. And they think the unions have done a very good job of saying, we're going to make the deal more fair, more equitable for you. Of course, as we know, that's a lie. The unions always end up in the long run harming workers, which is what's so sad about it, even though they might get some short-term perks and benefits.
Yeah, it's interesting too, this dichotomy, because Tennesseans voted overwhelmingly in 2022 to put right to work in our state constitution. 70% of voters supported that amendment. Yeah, we polled this recently in the most recent Beacon poll. We asked about the UAW's efforts both at the Chattanooga plant and what we anticipate will be similar at the Ford plant when it comes online in West Tennessee. And 44% of voters said, yeah, we support the UAW. Only 19% oppose it. That's not 70%, but it's not a majority, but that's a significant trend. And is it the UAW just has a good PR machine, or are they just tapping into that unrest and populism?
I think it's both of those things. And I also think it's a third factor. When the vote happened on the statewide constitutional amendment, that is framed within the idea of workers controlling their relationship with their union. And that's going to get a bigger majority versus the specific tangible vote on this particular factory, these particular workers, would they be better off? And so I think people bifurcate it. The analogy I would use is like splitting your ticket. Over here, I'm going to vote for president for this guy on that party, but on this local race, because of the particular situation, I'm going to vote for somebody from a different party. And I think it's very similar to that.
But are there consequences? Because, we could have between these two plants and one already unionized plant in the state, more than 10,000 UAW members eventually. What does that mean? I mean, is it just we're going to be a little bit more pro-union as a state, or you come from a state where unions have a heavy presence, if not outright control, of state government. What have been the consequences of that?
Oh, I think this matters greatly, and there'll be severe consequences. And I think it puts the whole arc of the Tennessee story at risk, because this is a foothold uh, on a beachhead in order to take over the entire labor market of Tennessee. So this is just the start of what they want to accomplish. And I think how you at the Beacon Center and others respond to this is going to be very important. Thank God you successfully led the way on getting a right to work in Tennessee, and congratulations on that, because that will make it easier for you to help people opt out of the union and reject the union's false promises. But this is going to be a battle for the coming years and decades for the future of Tennessee. Will Tennessee go the way of a unionized northern state, or will it stay the way it has been, a high growth, high opportunity, relatively speaking, low regulatory state? The unions want one, and what's best for people, particularly poor people, particularly minorities, is what currently exists in Tennessee. And I think that's going to be a battle for years to come.
Yeah, I think people forget what comes the domino effect of that, what comes after, right? Once you have a heavy union presence, that comes with higher taxes, that comes with more government spending, a lot of debt, and the things that we have shunned in the state that we're proudly
Yes.
on the opposite side of that, and it could really have ramifications. And there is this element of, well, we put right to work in the Constitution, everything's safe. That's enough. But that's one thing we want to do, is just to continue to educate Tennesseans on those core values that we have had as a state and that have been successful for us. It also, there's this notion that, well, unions are just there to protect the little guy. We've obviously seen that not to be true. We can protect worker freedom, and we can do it in other ways. So can you talk a little bit about what are some things that we can be talking about that will speak to the worker directly and make the case for, we're the ones looking out for you. We can protect your freedoms in ways that you don't have to give up, significant costs to the union through dues to protect those rights.
Yeah, I think this is one of the great bait and switch arguments that the unions make, is that they're going to protect the little guy, when the federal law, as well as Tennessee law, already protects every individual worker, from a mom and pop to a big factory to a big services corporation. Workers are protected. Workers have more freedoms and more rights than ever in the history of this country. This is not like 1920, where workers truly needed to have unionization in order to have a more level playing field of management and ownership. So workers are already protected. And of course, what you can do is help workers understand what their rights are that already exist, and how much control they already have of their relationship with their employer. What's happening when you get into the union is the workers giving up their control of their relationship with their employer and subordinating their interest to union leadership. And union leadership pretends to care about the individual worker, but actually what they want is the collective power of bringing them all together, and the political agenda of union leadership, often at odds with rank and file membership. And that's what I think workers need to understand. When unions come in, they reduce individual initiative, they reduce individual opportunity, they reduce individual creativity, and they reduce individual flexibility. So if you want to be in the coercive collective of the union, good, vote for it, and you're going to experience that. And again, you might get some short-term benefit. But if you believe that you are unique and you want to pursue opportunity, you want to improve your life, the union's going to create an artificial cap on your upside potential. And that's not good for anyone who wants to grow and get better tomorrow than they are today.
Yeah, and you fought these battles so much, and you've seen this firsthand. We really don't, much lower union rates in the South, things like you've mentioned. Why has the UAW focused so heavily on the South? Is it just a new economy for them? A lot of automotive is moving to the South, so they've got to follow the jobs. Is it as simple as that, or is there more at play here?
I think those are definitely factors, but I also think that they see the South as a pivotal inflection point. If they can win in places like Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, then they feel the whole country is once again open to them. Whereas the mid South and far South has, generally speaking, been hostile to unionization. So this is a test case to prove that it's viable. And and it is, I think you used the word earlier, the domino effect. This is a very important domino in a city, in a state that has been amazingly successful over the last 20 years in transforming itself into an economic center of the Mid-South and really the country as a whole. So they see this as a tremendous opportunity to reverse that decline I referred to earlier. I mean, the UAW is coming in here Also, I think because those plants are in places where demographically they think they have aggrieved populations that they can sell the victimization mindset to. And I think that this is a lesson for anyone in any kind of manufacturing, potential unionized situation, is you'd better darn well be on top of how you're treating your workers, be proactive in how you're treating your workers, and get ahead of it. And don't ever take your workforce for granted. I think that's the one thing that's good about this, is it should open the eyes of employers, not just in Tennessee, but around the country, and just remind them that retention and happy employees is a 100% of the time, 7 days a week, 365 endeavor. And there's, people are human. They sometimes lose sight of that. So I think in some ways this will be good, and hopefully people respond well to it.
It's a good way to end on a positive note, because there are things we can do to protect worker freedom and be on the side of the little guy who does feel aggrieved, who feels like they don't often have recourse, and we can answer that without being, well, let's just let the union come in and do this because it's a false choice, right? But
Yep.
again, appreciate you sharing your insight. I know we're going to talk a lot about this in the future because it's becoming a bigger and bigger deal in the state, and we can't take it for granted. Even though we've done some really great things like put the right to work in the Constitution and a number of other things, that could all go away. We've seen that happen in other states, including yours. And so we
Yes.
appreciate you giving us that warning call to really pay attention to what's happening. And we'll be watching closely this week as the Mercedes plant in Alabama concludes its voting, and see if this is a march through the South for the UAW. So again, thank you for bearing with us this week. You didn't get Mark and Taylor, but they'll be back soon. John, we really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for all you do. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Justin. Glad to be with you.